What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC NBA Draft Talk. A little bit, we got to do little profiles of some of the top ACC players that are taking their talent to the NBA, as well as some super regional news, as we have 4 ACC teams that are trying to make that College World Series, get on that big stage, and do all the things. So we'll talk about that here on today's show.
Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Candace Cooper. Thank you so much for joining Locked On ACC and making your first listen each and every day. On Monday's episode, we have Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack joining the show, who is moving around and making all of this lovely noise here. But we are enjoying having him talk a little bit about some baseball and basketball today. Kenton, thanks so much for joining the show.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
That's all you got for us today, huh?
You know, there's it's been a rough sports time in Raleigh for a lot of teams, and it's tough to muster good words and positive energy today. I'm doing my best, but sometimes your best ain't good enough, and maybe that intro wasn't good enough. But we're here. We're here nonetheless.
You know, it just be like that sometimes. As a reminder, we are in summer schedule, so we are only doing 3 episodes a week, but they will be 3 quality episodes nonetheless. You'll see a little bit of AJ Black, Jersey Drake, Kenton Gibbs, and sometimes JJ Jackson in the building. So I want you guys to be very aware. And also summer questions, if you have any, please feel free to hit us up at Candace Cooper or at Locked On ACC to let us know what you would like to discuss as we get through this very fun period of having some really interesting conversations. So let's start here. Want to remind folks that baseball is in full swing, all pun intended. And we have a great time here for 4 ACC schools that will be taking their talents to the Super Regionals. You got Louisville, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, and UNC. And so out of those 4 schools, I think that nobody necessarily thought that it would be those 4 of the crew, but nonetheless, some very powerful, strong teams that will have a really good postseason continuing. What are your thoughts there, Kenton?
I mean, Miami not making it to a Super Regional is a little bit surprising, but the teams that you named, you're talking about the ACC regular season champion Virginia Tech. You're talking about one of the hottest teams in America in UNC, despite, their coach getting frivolously tossed, which, at this point, I would like to sign a formal petition about the NCAA just keeping his hands off of North Carolina college baseball altogether. But with that being said, these are teams that were solid for a majority of the year. These are teams that either were solid for a majority of the year or were looked at coming down the stretch, finishing hot. So it's not too much of a surprise to see this group in. It is a surprise to not see more in, maybe, but I mean, 4 to super regionals that's still an impressive number.
Yeah, you mentioned Forbes from UNC, the head coach that was suspended for 2 games. And we all know that North Carolina has not been on NCAA's good list so far, but 2 games in the postseason in baseball, to me, that was quite surprising considering you rarely see people get suspended, in that sport. And so I was a little taken aback and confused as to why it called for 2-game suspension.
Not to mention, if they lose, I believe the first of those 2 games, they were going to be out, right? They had to beat VCU twice in order to advance. So I think that everybody who saw that thought it was unnecessary and frivolous. And I'm saying this as an NC State guy. And again, how many times what did I say last time I was on the show? The same thing make you laugh, make you cry. Go ahead and laugh now. You're going to cry later. Because everybody was laughing about, the NCAA, y'all should stop complaining. Again, it's always funny when it's not your turn. But again, I'm a firm believer in the fact that at the end of the day, that was a terrible call as far as the suspension and all that. And at the end of the day, these gentlemen are trying to win the championship, and they've gotten to this level, and they've gotten to this place, and to do something that greatly reduces the opportunity to do so off of something so minor is a little disappointing. But UNC prevailed anyway, and he's back now. So
yeah, and they beat Georgia, and then they beat Georgia during the day. The game ended probably like at 5, I want to say 4:35, and they had to play VCU at 6 p.m. So, like, the strength of baseball, like, the schedule is wild to me. Like, I'm learning more. I'm getting more into it, given like the teams that I cover. But it's very wild how they had to come back and play full games, 2 in one day, because we know baseball's long as hell. And then they had to do it again on Sunday, and ultimately like put it away. It was like 7-2 or something like that.
Well, baseball requires a different thing physically than what our sports require. Like, if somebody is swimming for 2 days straight, they're gonna die. They're not making that. You're not. That's not happening. Like, you're at some point in time, you're done there.
Yeah.
Football, you're not playing 2 games in a day ever, unless you're Bishop Sycamore, of course, because then who cares? But
oh my God.
In reality, baseball is a sport where you're exerting yourself when you are exerting, but after that, you get a very long layoff where you should be focused, you should be locked in and ready for the ball to come your way. But you can be standing in the outfield and nothing really comes for an entire game. And that's just, I just played the game. But
still, standing on your legs, I don't know, maybe I'm just old, but like standing for 2 hours, 3 hours, that's a lot on the body.
No? Yeah, you're just old. The baby boomer in you is coming out. That's what that was.
Speaking of Bishop Sycamore, I saw a tweet. It was like, name a scandal that just quietly went away. And Bishop Sycamore just like quietly went away. Like it was a thing, but then it wasn't.
Did it though? Did it? Because I remember everybody was talking about that coach had a warrant, and then next thing you know, it was like this big hoopla about how ESPN didn't properly vet him, and the third party didn't properly vet him, and it went away. But I don't know about quietly. I don't know if that thing. I don't know if it just everybody just woke up one day and was like, oh Lord, Bishop Sycamore still exists.
One thing that'll never go away, apparently, is the NCAA and their deductive reasoning for poor decision making. And I just think that it's, again, wild how we still have these conversations about an entity that I'm just ready for them to figure out their place and position in this world. I don't feel like it has anything to do with sports. I think they just need to be good, when it comes to maybe giving kids money in terms of just helping them with philanthropic efforts. But when it comes to regulation and dishing out penalties, they haven't quite hit it yet. They're not really doing justified things, in my opinion.
I know that these words are political buzzwords for many, but I'm gonna say them anyway. And this is something that we should bipartisanly be happy about. Defund the NCAA, abolish it, get rid of it, scrap it, come up with something new. Because right now, in the words of Mike Leach, who again is ultra conservative, he's said it multiple times. We have a bunch of folks who are not lawyers pretending to be lawyers, and that's where we keep running into problems with the NCAA. And so, I agree with Mike Leach. Nobody should be impersonating a job that you're not on a professional level for an extended period of time. They took lying on your resume to a whole nother level. You can't do it like that. That's just not what it should be. So,
And you're all about, lying on the resume here. You will do that if you have to.
I would not. I would never. I would
if you had to?
No, my resume is straight up and down. I'm a recruiter, so the resume got to be straight up and down.
I would teach the kids, listen, do what you got to do to get where you got to get.
Well,
everybody does that. Everybody does it.
More power to you, but for me and mine, we gonna go straight up and down so that you don't end up on the job. So you told us you know how to code and all these different. What happened? I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Y'all ain't got to worry about me. You know what I mean?
Oh my Lanza. All right. Well, I want to get into a little bit of basketball conversation because of course the NBA draft is on its way, and if you have not yet checked out the Locked On NBA Draft podcast, you're quite doing yourself a disservice. Now, BetOnline is your number one source for all of your betting stats and information. Find all the latest sports developments, news, odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and more. BetOnline, continued place for sports wagering info, live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. So we're speaking with Kenton Gibbs here, and of course, we're talking about all things ACC, and we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the NBA draft. All the early entry deadlines, all the things have passed, so now you're either in or you're out. You pick your decision. Jake LaRavia from Wake Forest has decided to take his talents to the NBA, which was a surprise pick for me. Going to be doing a profile on him a little bit later. But we also had Trevor Keels wait till the 11th hour, make his decision. Now he joins all of his Duke teammates, so we'll talk about those. And Blake Wesley out of Notre Dame, another surprising guy who decided to take his talents to the NBA, which I think, there was not much more for him to do after Notre Dame's season. I think they had the opportunity to have a really good run last year, but then ultimately came up short. But, I'm all for, Coach, what's my guy's name? what is I see his face right now, but I can't call his name. Notre Dame men's head basketball coach. You know who I'm talking about.
I'm with
We
you
see his
there.
face. I see the beer. Mike. It's Mike something, right?
I can't even tell you. I couldn't.
Come on.
Couldn't tell you.
I know this. I'm seeing his face right now. He likes to have a pint of something. But anyway, it's all good. He used to say Blake Wesley is going to the NBA. I can't believe I'm having a brain. I'm literally looking at him talk on doing an interview, and I can't call it. He was an assistant for Coach Krzyzewski, all this stuff. But
Mike Bray.
Thank you, Mike Bray. Got it. Now, all that I would love to play for Mike Bray, but of course, if you got to get that money, get that money. And then your guy Darion Sebron has decided to take his talents to the next level. So let's start there. Darion deciding to stay in the draft, giving all his talents to the pack. I was interested, and I heard a rumor that, it was time. It was time for him to go to the next level, do what he had to do. There was nothing left for him at NC State. What were your thoughts to him deciding to stay in the draft?
Well, folks who watch Locked On Wolfpack, you knew this was coming because I told you, packing the mail, the boy's gone a long time ago. All of my sources and folks that I spoke to inside the program said, that was a foregone conclusion and a done deal. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that his draft stock didn't see the same type of meteoric rise that Terquavion Smith did, the reality is, when somebody feels like there's not much more for them to gain and they have that made up in their mind, that's just what they're going to do. And again, do I agree? Do I agree with his decision? Yes, he's a young man that's making a decision for himself. That's more power to you. Do I feel like there was more money for him to get if he came back? And even if he didn't stay at NC State, if he, decided to go elsewhere and, showed a really good season as far as shooting and playmaking in a situation where he was not asked to be the primary ball handler. Yeah, for sure. I absolutely think there was more money for him to get. But it is his life to lead. He is making the best decision for himself and his family. And, Wolfpack Nation is behind him and wishing them the best of luck because, again, at the end of the day, there is no convincing a player who has made up that this is what they're going to do. There's no convincing, and you shouldn't waste your time doing it. You shouldn't waste your time doing it. Darion Sebron's a great player, but Coach Keats got to go get to work in the portal.
Now I heard a rumor, a little birdie, say that Terquavion Smith, while he is not going to the NBA draft, may not be coming back to NC State.
I don't know where that little birdie came from. Okay, and
I'm just saying.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. I acknowledge birdies that are legitimate, right? Okay. Like when people were talking about the Tommy White thing, I said, "Oh yeah, mm-hmm. there's some credence there. There's some real deal before you transfer." Mm-hmm. Terquavion Smith, y'all got to be out your mind.
Okay.
The young man grew up an NC State fan, mm-hmm. that is not something that you hear often. Like let's just be honest. As a NC State grad, you do not hear of superstar talents growing up NC State fans through and through in this day and age, especially basketball players. And with that being said, not only is he NC State guy through and through as far as his fandom, the team is his. The keys are going to be given to him. He's going to have the ball as much as he wants or does not want it. If he wants to come off pin downs and to run floppy action and not have the ball in his hands and just be the guy who knocks down shots when he's open, he'll have the opportunity to do that too. So yeah. I don't really understand what the talk there is about, but
apparently it was because the reviews that were given by Coach Keats weren't as favorable in terms of just being ready. So maybe there might be a little rift there, but who knows?
Well, and that makes sense because Terquavion Smith was one of, if not the best performer at the NBA Combine. Mm-hmm. He jumped higher than anybody thought he was going to be able to leap. He was the number one three-point shooter there in terms of percentage for the three-point star drill. He put up double digits in both of the scrimmages that he participated in. He played really good defense, which again, everybody keeps pushing this narrative. They're like, oh yeah, Terquavion Smith's a great on-ball defender, where I'm like, what games were y'all watching last year?
None.
And this is not to disrespect the young man. Does he have all of the traits there to be a really good to great on-ball defender? Absolutely. Long arms, quick feet, all the things. I did not see I saw him show moments where he was good, moments where he was really good. I didn't see great. I saw great at jumping passing lanes. I did not see a great on-ball defender at any point in time. So if he goes out and puts on a show that is unlike anything that Coach Keats had seen all season, of course there's going to be a difference in evaluation. Like, what are we talking about here? This ain't like football where the combine, I mean, it can maybe help you a little bit, might hurt you a little bit. But like, you rarely ever hear, oh, this guy ran this fast, and so he was projected to go in the middle of the back half of the 5th round, and now he's a first rounder. That doesn't happen. That doesn't. In basketball, you can jump up because nobody was talking about Jaquavion Smith seriously being a top 60 guy, a guy that they knew was going to get drafted for sure. All of a sudden, a few great days at the combine, he's going to be the 20th overall pick. So Coach Keats wasn't the only one who felt a certain way about you, buddy. I'm sorry to tell you, but again, Jaquavion Smith, there is a lot of smoke and mirrors and all that. And, you know, we're in the dog days of summer. They reduced the number of episodes we got to do for a reason, okay? You got to find something to talk about. And this just feels like one of those things where it's like, let's talk about something. Let's just talk the talk. And I'll dig into this more deeply and report back to you next week as to whether or not I find any credence to this one. But at the moment, I have heard nothing from anybody. And I got folks who call me when something big is going down, and I've heard nothing from anybody on Jaquavion potentially leaving. Well,
you heard it there first. And then we have the guys from Duke deciding to go take their talent to the league. And as I mentioned, Wake Forest, Jake LaRavia briefly, but then you have Alondes Williams, who we all knew was going to go ahead to the next level. But with Duke, we're talking about the ACC and where that landscape of ACC basketball looks like, and to not have your starting 5 and then, you know, Trevor Keels coming off the bench at times. It's very interesting to me how the dynamics is going to go. To me, I'm already saying if Carolina doesn't go ahead and do the whole kit and caboodle, why did y'all all come back? But, you know, there's people who say, listen, it's pretty much wide open spaces.
We know exactly why they came back. Come on now.
Just because the NIL deals was right?
Yeah, well, okay. Let me ask you this, okay? Armando Bacot in college basketball, what percentile would you rank him in? Like, if you say this many bigs, this much, or this percent of bigs are better than him, what would that percent be?
I would say like 10%.
Do that for the NBA. What percent of bigs do you think would be better than him?
Well, the big role in general in the NBA is not really
What percent would you say are better than Armando Bacot right now? How many would you say Armando Bacot goes to that team? He's a starter right now.
Ooh, a starter?
Yeah.
He probably could go to Sacramento and be a starter.
You know, it's crazy. I was just thinking that. I mean, the Kings is a team that he can go start for. But that's the reality. He
could probably be an Indiana Pacer. Well, is it Miles Turner still up there?
Miles Turner is still up there. They got rid of Sabonis, so he might be able to play the 4.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's my exact point. Like,
the Orlando Magic, he could go do something with Mr. Anthony. No? Okay.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Okay. The Magic got the number 1 pick. Now, who do you think they're gonna go with there? Who do you think?
If they go with Chet, they're silly. No,
you think they're gonna go Ivy? You think?
To me personally, like, I'm not gonna hold y'all. After seeing Kevin Durant, I wouldn't go with tall and skinny and strong. Like, I need someone who has like Kevin was good, but the longevity. Like, everybody's not. Kevin Durant is one of one. And I think that if you try and make skinny and really good shooter, dribbler, blah, 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 that moment, he's going to break his Achilles, his knee, his ankle, his hamstring bone, like all of that. His hamstring's not a bone, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not with this tall, skinny, athletic guys.
But in all fairness, Kevin Durant has had decent longevity. It's just that we're seeing him at the same time as we're seeing the guy who is at worst the second best player of all time go well deep into his 30s. Like, oh yeah, this is all right. That's not normal. Like, what Kevin Durant's arc is what's normal. You know what I mean? You
Okay.
expect that.
But I
So
don't think Chet doesn't give me that vibe. So I wouldn't even pick Chet. I think I would pick Jabari. I would think I'd pick
okay, well,
Jaden. I would
okay.
pick Paolo, who I know for a fact has cramp issues before I pick Chet.
All I'm saying is this, okay? I see this as a very simple, a
Uh-huh.
very straightforward situation here. When you're talking about why these players came back, at the end of the day, a lot of these guys came back because they knew there was more money to make coming back. That's the reality, right?
All right, hold this up, because I want to know just off the top, when guys come back, do you still feel like they have a chance, after the season? Are they still going to be in kind of the same ballpark that they were? But first, don't you love a chewy chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel chocolate brownie with caramel swirled on top? So good. What if I told you that you can have that chewy chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? You're in luck because caramel brownie bars are available at build.com right now, and you got to act fast because they are a fan favorite. Caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, like for real. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for health. You can have both. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So we got to pay the bills there for a second, but Locked On Wolfpack host Kenton Gibbs is trying to really discuss with us here the fact that, yes, these guys are coming back for NIL money for 1 year. But then after that year, okay, you might be ACC Player of the Year. You still got to try and go to the league. You think they're going to be one of these like Tyler Hansworth, like you have a really good college career and that there's not so much anything after that?
I don't think that's the case for all of them. I think
Okay.
that some of them are in better positions to succeed than others. I'll tell you this: the guy that I think has the highest upside of that group is not the one that many people would think. And I think many people would probably say Caleb Love is the guy
Mm-hmm.
that I think the other guard help me
RJ
out here.
Davis.
RJ Davis. I think
100% agree.
he's the guy that
100%.
if he can show that he can consistently be a floor general, a leader, and if he proves that he can score, he can
Well,
create
his
for himself.
decision making is to me in a different level than Caleb off the strength.
Well,
Like,
sure. Well, here's the thing. Caleb is the more athletic. He's the more explosive. And so, a lot of NBA teams think, well, you give us the athleticism and explosion, and we can refine that into what we need to make as far as the other parts go. And RJ doesn't have that. But here's what I am saying about RJ. It doesn't matter if he doesn't have the explosiveness. If he can find ways to generate offense for himself without it. If he is super crafty and finds a way, I talk about this guy a lot, but Andre Miller played in the league for nearly 20 years. Why? Because he was just crafty. He played at his own pace. He controlled the tempo of the floor. He was a really good floor general. RJ Davis can show that he can be that plus some as far as shot creation in this season. He can show that. He can do as far as, Caleb Love, I think that he has to be more consistent. I think that he has to, like you said, the decision making has to improve.
yeah.
Because whether you're going to be a combo guard, I don't think he's big enough to be a true two guard. So you're going to be a combo guard at best. And with that being said, you need to make better decisions, because if you're a guy who needs the ball in your hands a lot, if you're making a lot of bad decisions, congratulations, you just cost us the game. Like that's the reality.
Well, you're gonna find yourself on the bench in the NBA. Like when you're in college.
No, you're gonna find yourself in Turkey. You're gonna find yourself in Turkey. That's where you're gonna find yourself. You're gonna find yourself you're gonna find yourself in Bahrain. That's don't worry about Bahrain. Don't worry about it. Or
is that real? Is that real?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that's a real place. I mean, if we making up fictional cities, if Bahrain does not exist in the real world, which I think it does, you're gonna find yourself somewhere overseas. You know what I mean? You're gonna find yourself somewhere overseas where they don't speak your language, where nobody puts ice in the drinks, and it's gonna be real hot for a lot of years. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, excuse me, y'all, for not being an international hottie, but I do think that he has areas of improvement. But for guys who are deciding to go to the league, despite there's probably plenty of money at Durham, North Carolina, if you wanted to stay and play for Duke, Wendell Moore Juniors of the world. You have the Trevor Keels of the world that are maybe not the most pertinent names in the draft, but certainly can find themselves in the league. But I think real quick, you find out how talented and elite you have to be to make the league, be a lottery pick. And then after that, it's kind of just like, you could make a camp, right? But even still, 12 people on the roster. It's not like football where you can find yourself on special teams and you can make a roster off of that. Like, ain't so much you can do to make the draft. But apparently, all the guys are going to get drafted out of that Duke roster allegedly. Okay,
that's a real big allegation. That's a real big allegation.
I would say for sure Paolo, AJ, and Mark. Those are the three that I'm saying are definites. Trevor is on the cusp.
For sure. I give you those three as well. But some of those guys, I don't know.
You don't think Mikel Moore Jr. is going to get drafted?
I think he's got a shot. I think he's got a good shot at getting drafted.
Do you think people get drafted off the strength of where they go?
Absolutely not. And that's what I think the problem is with Trevor Keels. He
should have come back.
He's got some skills. He's got some things. And, some people are predicting him as a late first rounder. I'm going to tell you this. We've seen it before in the NBA that all of the experts have somebody going at one place and then they end up not getting picked. And
I think it's also difficult, again, when you have a plethora of guys at one place. It's almost too much for your own good. Like, once you have all of your homies getting drafted, you kind of get lost in the sauce if you're not like a superstar. And that's just, on your own team, let alone in an entire draft process. So it gets really difficult because, when we look at the landscape of the NBA draft, there are a lot of good names. And then you don't even really factor in the international guys that are going to get those shines and opportunities, right? So I think it's going to be tough.
International guys who forewent college, who decide to forego college to go to the G League. Like, again, if I'm a basketball player, especially at a blue blood program, I'm gonna hang on to that unless I'm like a guy that they know
otherworldly. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you go at 20. Worst case scenario. If I'm not one of those guys, I'm gonna stay in college because again,
to me, I'm like, if I'm not top 5, what's the rush? If I know I'm gonna get millions staying at a Kentucky, a Duke, a North Carolina, why?
But I don't think that many teams have millions. Like I think that those teams that you name have a lot of money.
But even 500,000, like I'm staying for that. I'm staying for 250.
I listen, and I agree. Again, I'm not trying to end up, and again, no disrespect to the city, I'm not trying to end up on the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. I'm not trying to end up on the Fort Wayne Mad Ants.
No, you know what? The people from Fort Wayne listening to you.
Listen, much respect to Fort Wayne. I'm sure it's an amazing city. I'm a Midwestern guy myself. I might want to stop through there sometime. I'm lying. I'm not stopping through Fort Wayne anytime soon. But you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, you go to the G League, and a lot I believe the majority of players on NBA rosters right now have played in the G League, and that's fine. But why would you want to deal with, you're 3 bad days away from no longer having a job? Like, that's the reality of the NBA. You're legitimately 3 days away from 3 bad days away. You have a few bad practices, a few bad games in a row. You're gone.
Yeah.
And also, Bahrain is a country. That is or Bahrain. I don't know I may have pronounced it wrong. It's a country in the Middle East. But
okay.
Anyway,
we'll have to go visit.
Fort Wayne, here we come. Locked On ACC is going on the road, Fort Wayne. Because what I mean? No offense to the great people over there.
I can't stand you. Bring it on home. Bring it on.
Listen, I don't even got a passport yet, so I don't even know how to get over there. Anywho,
bring it on
I say all this to say,
God.
In college, they ask the question, what can you do? In the NBA and G League, they ask, what can't you do? Those are 2 very different scenarios. You want to stay in the scenario of what can you do. You can bet on yourself and do the what can't you do. But that bet on yourself has turned out, for every 1 or 2 success stories we hear, there are hundreds of players. Thousands probably. I was about to say thousands probably of players who they were so good in college, and everybody who went to that college remembers them, and they're like, oh, man, he was the man.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they now? Working at Enterprise. That, you know what I mean?
My Kenton.
No, okay. See, I can't
honestly,
talk about
Enterprise. Honestly, while you look playing, Enterprise has a great program for college athletes.
They're a Fortune 500 company, right? That's a good. I'm not saying that's a bad job. I'm saying if you ask any athlete, which one would you rather do? Be playing in college or working at a 9-to-5 job? What? Come on now. Come on.
I mean, it's pretty 9 to 5 is overrated. So anytime you get to play your sport as long as you can, I highly recommend.
That's all I'm saying. That's not a knock. I can't talk about nothing on this show no more without people feeling. Listen, I'm not attacking nobody. I'm not saying nothing bad about nobody's country, nobody's city, nobody's job. I'm just saying that
It's
the
okay.
alternatives are staying in college, staying in the city where you the man, you the big fish in the small pond, as opposed to leaving out and going to be a guppy in the ocean with the sharks and the whales and the, you a plankton now. Like, come on. Nobody wants to do that.
We always appreciate the hot takes, Kenton. Well, thank you for joining us and giving us your rendition. Can you please remind these folks where they can find you and find all of your opinions and thoughts?
Absolutely. Wherever you are listening to or watching this, you can find me at Locked On Wolfpack. With that being said, you can also find my personal Twitter right here, TGIF_Ken. Please be aware that it's Ken the man, not Ken the sports broadcaster. So I'm going to talk about more than sports there. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
No doubt about it, guys. Come back tomorrow as we are going to talk to AJ Black about the best teams in the ACC. Wildly, way too early predictions for ACC football. We're going to throw some things out there. You'll be surprised, I'm sure. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, until next time.